I see Power Rangers easily working as another Marvel universe if they handle it right. That's always the billion-dollar problem. There's a ton of seasons and stories that would work perfectly in a movie format, either adapting story arcs, following the episodic changes, or big set pieces like new villain transitions, and of course season finales as ending films. All of the PR seasons could be turned into films, but some are more easier to convert. Ignoring how liked or hated a season was received, there are things that I hated in a season that would work out better in a film version. Thanks goes to Terrence Foreman for the topic. If you have a subject you'd like me to do, leave a comment down below. I may pick yours.
In space.
Let me start off with In Space. I have it low on my list due to how it relies heavily on past seasons, so the direction they can do this season is somewhat limited. If, for say, the search for Zordon was removed, they can do a lot of ambitious things with actually going in space. They could expand on the various aliens from the PR universe, including Zordon's home planet. Zane's backstory, the loss of KO-35, and Andros' sister would be a good driving force for many films. The question though, who would be the other four Rangers if Turbo and Zeo didn't happen? It could open up the door to original characters in the movie universe, or the writers would still create Ashley, TJ, Carlos, and Cassie, but be clean slates in this film. One thing for certain, Corone fighting between her Astronema side and Corone side would be a great final movie moment to see on the big screen.
Ninja Storm.
I had this slot fighting between Ninja Storm and Samurai. I wanted to include one of the foreign style seasons in this list, Ninja Storm being an easier fit towards a trilogy. This season would be a bit more difficult in working as films due to the amount of generals and the comedy. There's no real good way to integrate all the origins of the generals into one film. I would see them doing 2 generals per movie and reducing the comedic elements, but not removing them completely. The origin movie would focus on the trio and the setup of Lothor and the generals. Zergain and Motor Drone would be best to be the main baddies for the first film. This way, the motocross elements for Blake, Hunter, and Dustin would have a purpose and introduce their love of sports. The Thunder Ranger arc would work great as its own sequel film, focusing on Chubo and Vexicus. I don't want to lose the battleizer and the sacrifice that Shane had with Skyla. This could be used as a bridge towards Blake and Hunter due to her death. This makes Shane realize that letting Blake and Hunter stay on the path of evil is not right, defeating and breaking them away from Lothor. This would also feature the final battle between Chubo and the Thunderstorm Megazord. The third film focusing on Cam, the time travel story, becoming the Green Ranger, and his mother. The truth about his family line, finally defeating Shimatsu, and stopping Lothor. The biggest issues in using Ninja Storm is Mara, Capri, and the whole guinea pig sensei. The ladies would have to be toned down, so none of the stupid news reporter moments, but they still have to retain their bubbly nature. This could work in Tori's favor, giving a B-story with Tori and the girls. As for Sensei Guinea Pig, it would most likely get dropped. I know you accept a lot of things in the Power Rangers universe, but this would probably cross lines. At most, they would have Sensei Kanoi be badly injured, stuck, unable to do much in the base till the final film. The final battle would be versing Lothor and all the past generals, with Mara and Capri deciding on who they should follow.
SPD.
I'd see SPD having some really great ways to pull this season off as films. Jack and Sky could have similar dynamics like the characters from Lethal Weapon and Rush Hour. Being open to other planets full of aliens would give it that Guardians of the Galaxy / Star Wars vibe. There's a ton of key episodes that could be opened up into sequel movies. Shadow and Omega Ranger could be the second SPD film, combining the 2 stories. Say Kat was actually killed by the bomb. The SPD team was also killed in the process, while Omega Ranger goes back in time to prevent this from happening. Due to this change in history, Z meets up with Kid Sam, who then gets inspired to become Omega Ranger. Kruger is forced to become Shadow Ranger, he stops her death, and Omega Ranger stays after history is corrected. Of course, actually making him a character in the movies. Interacting with his past self every now and again could be a possible plot point. The Delta Command Megazord introduction would be the movie's final battle, as well as a small hint that Kat would be ready for something in the future. SWAT Mode and Sky's revenge for his father could be another film. using the Battleizer and SWAT Megazord, while the first film would be about everyone's origin, combining their secret past with the pilot material and a few other key character bits like Sid and Jack's stakeout, and of course Sid and Rick's episode. A fourth film could be about Z's rivalry with Morgana and the final Megazord fight with Grum's ship, the base attack, and locking him up for good. The B story could be Sophie infiltrating SPD, allowing Broodwig to take control of the Delta Command Megazord, while Bridge rescues her with Cat, introducing Cat Ranger into the films. These are just some examples on how they could adapt pieces of various episodes into working as full films. Anything is possible with just the SPD season alone. It has a lot of material they can do things with, above everything else fixing Sam.
Operation Overdrive.
Structurally, Overdrive would work great as feature films. Traveling around the world could be a key part of each movie, say like 2 locations per story. The first film, of course, being their origin story, better explaining the gene enhancements, maybe have a part where a few of them exploit the powers. It could be a great way to do something with Ronnie in the Grand Prix, for example. Even things like Will quitting could be a focus point in a second film. Have him actually walk. Watch the team slowly fall apart. Mac finding out he's a robot would follow as he tries to look at Will's background information. This is where he could be mad at his father, where the movie could focus on the personal issues for the 2 Rangers along with Hartford. This is where Spencer could come in to try to mend things. The Drive Max Megazord is captured thanks to all the arguing and being a Ranger short. This could lead Mac befriending a monster later being revealed as Tyzon, debuting the Super Drive Max in the final fight. The Fear Cats and Mercury Ranger could be a third movie in and of itself. I would combine both origin stories and the 2-parter where Tyzon was trapped in his mind. That trick would make him decide to become the 6th Ranger using the dual Drive Max Ultrazord as well as the Flashpoint Megazord. A fourth film could be about mirror tricks using Dax to infiltrate the mansion, steal most of the gems, and reveal the final faction, integrating the Chalice episodes in order to stop the Fear Cats and Camdor. The Battlefleet Megazord and Defender Fest is used for the final fight. There's a lot of things they can do. Any of the gem missions could be used as a full movie, although they probably would avoid Thor's hammer. Overdrive had good stuff. Movies can make this season better.
RPM.
RPM already felt like a movie in ways. Dylan's hidden past, the world ending, Dr. K's thought to be a computer, Vengeance feeling similar to the Terminator movies. Tons of stuff could be turned into multiple films. They could even build up the different Ranger teams. The first film could solely focus on the trio, with Dylan being the primary objective, Scott being the focal point of the whole arc, resolving his problem at the end of the film, while Flynn and Summer follow a similar path. I would have Flynn's father and Summer's parents dying in the process so that all 3 of them have that connection of loss. This is what made them become Rangers. Dylan is then revealed to be a robot in the ending, which convinces Kay to come out of hiding. A follow-up movie could focus on Dylan and his sister along with Ziggy, Jem, and Gemma becoming Rangers. The primary villains would be Kilobyte and the second form of Vengeance. The third film could focus on Dr. K's background, combining the Ziggy Dr. K Trapped episode with the Alphabet Soup episode as a starting point. This would culminate with her figuring out a way to rescue Dylan's sister, causing Vengeance to hack into the morphing grid, killing off Jem and Gemma, ending with destroying Vengeance like the show, but more involved like half Corinth goes with him, potentially opening up the door to a Shattered Grid film and seeing that Jem and Gemma weren't lost but sent through time.
Time Force.
I see Time Force films being really good at character development. It would be where the villains would get more care put into their arcs, as well as having a blank slate for 3 of the Rangers who I would like to see actually used, unlike what happened in the show. In the first film, the key parts of Alex, his death, Wes and Jen's hatred would be the focus in the origin movie, combining stories from Fat Catfish's episode, while the B-plot would focus on discussing the possibility of changing history. Katie missing her family, and how the time travel part of the movie works so that questions can be answered and to establish basic limitations. Introducing the Rime, Silver Guardians, and the final battle where they fail, so they call the Time Force Megazord. For a second film, I would take a risk and change a few things from the show. It would focus on Eric becoming the Quantum Ranger, but Eric would become evil for a short time. Using the Q-Rex Megazord controlled by Rancic as monsters, I would have Rancic trick the city, showing the Rangers controlling Q-Rex. This in return causes Eric to find the Quantum Ranger controller to stop them. This would devolve into an Eric vs. Wes fight. At the end, Wes's helmet gets blown off, exposing him. This would then cause Eric to question everything he's done. In the process, the Time Force Megazord is badly damaged by Q-Rex and the monster, where we get introduced to the Time Shadow. Eric finding out that the monster was in control, so he fights to get the Q-Rex back. The third film can focus more on the other three Rangers, Trip being the most affected, being manipulated by Nadira, his problem crossing over with Frax, finding out his secret, opening the X-Vault, and him being killed off by Rancic for his betrayal. The fourth film focusing on history being changed, Rancic going insane, and Katie and Lucas being focused on changing Eric for the better. Alex reveal, seeing Wes and Eric's death, Jen and the others changing history for the final time. Another major change would be removing the little girl from the series. I'd rather have Katie and Lucas be the ones to help out Eric.
Dino Thunder.
Mesogog would be a perfect villain to work into films. His conflict of being a Jekyll and Hyde character, hiding it from everyone, Trent going evil, the return of the high school setting, bringing back a past ranger. It would be a little bit more harder to break down the season into films since there's stuff that links together, and whether this would be a continuation from the 2017 PR film continuity or another take on MMPR is another thing to consider. I see these films focusing on how the characters' lives get affected by being a Power Ranger. The one thing that would greatly improve is Mesogog. Even with the Y7 rating limit, they were able to pull off the undertones of Mesogog really well. The abusive nature of his melting head beam gave him that extra sick nature. In PG-13, they can go one step further with this, including tormenting Mercer. The one thing I found as a missed opportunity in the show was that Mesogog really hated Mercer, so why didn't he expose Trent to the evil Dino Gem on purpose? That would have been the ultimate torture to Mercer. I'd see that happening in the film. You can also build up this hatred over these films, trying to see who would come out on top. More stuff like when Mercer was tending to his greenhouse, expand on that. Trent being evil in a second film, Kira finding this out would be a much more difficult problem for her to swallow. I would make it so that her decision to hide this from the guys would be the reason why the Black Ranger goes into a coma. The Black Ranger stuck in amber and unable to morph would be dropped from the film, but the internal struggle to survive would be kept. This then would not only make everyone doubt Trent, but also Kira. She would have to figure out a way to show them she's sorry. This would lead up to unlocking Connor's Triassic Ranger mode. A third film could combine the aftermath of Trent being freed, trying to join the team, the secret of Principal Randall. I also see it a fitting end that Anton would die to save his son and the Rangers. As for Smitty, I think it would be best to just ignore that part of the season. It really wouldn't affect any major key points, or they could make it Mesogog was able to split from Mercer, throwing him into the Smitty armor and having him under mind control as a twist.
Lightspeed Rescue.
This season would feel the most grounded towards the more traditional superhero story. Giant organization supporting a team of heroes, even some Indiana Jones, Aquaman, and Mummy elements are ready to be used. All of them don't hide their identities. This would open up new story ideas instead of the usual protect loved ones, hide everything. Captain Mitchell would benefit even more than what the series could do. They could push the father-son dynamic much farther in PG-13, possibly making a huge emotional fight between Ryan, Diabolical, and Mitchell. Who does Ryan follow? Light or dark? Good or bad? Dana could be the deciding factor in this film, which is one of the areas that the show failed with. It was always about the father and son. She needed to factor into the story more. All the characters in general would work well for backstories. I would argue that the Lightspeed team had the best amount of backstories for the show. Their stories are more self-contained, similar to the 2017 MMPR movie. They're professionals in all their fields, but aren't perfect. The origin film could mix Carter's lack of awareness and Mitchell's connection to him as an obstacle for Carter to overcome. The series has many large set pieces that would be amazing as movie moments. The Super Train Megazord, the asteroid problem with Omega Megazord, the aligning planets to revive Queen Ventura, the zombie-esque type monsters, even the differences in the ways Diabolical and Olympus run things could be an interesting B-story element for various films, culminating in a final film killing off the demons.
Super Megaforce.
This would be the most changed out of the TV seasons due to it being solely based off what they do in the movie universe. But it would be the Avengers for the Power Rangers line. Just for that potential alone is why I have it as number 2. Now, the obvious thing to do is to ignore all the Megaforce material. It does suck to lose elements from that season, mainly Robo Knight, but it would be too confusing to get that to work for a film. However, all the characters would be kept. Maybe I would see some sort of amalgamation of Orion and Robo Knight being mixed here and there. Since he is an alien, some of Robo Knight's questions on humanity would work fine. This could also be a way to bring back various villains done throughout the movie line, so that this could be a trilogy of movies instead of just a one-off. It'd still be a bit tricky to figure out a way for this to not get boring, but the writers would have a blank slate of characters they could flesh out. The Zord designs would probably be the hardest to sell. I mean, all the Zords can easily come out bad for any season, but a flying pirate ship would look very stupid. The villains would definitely benefit being in a film series. The thing that would be hard to balance is the fan service versus character focus. You want to use the old characters in a key part to the movie while building that on top of the new ones, especially when Super Megaforce's core reason is to feature old suits and characters. We want Avengers Infinity type of quality, not Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Lost Galaxy.
I have some bias, but I think Lost Galaxy would be the best season to adapt. The season itself had a large budget and expanded on a lot of things from the PR universe. It had great villain characters and crazy twist endings. Some episodes already felt like movies, such as Alien and Star Trek, traveling around the universe in hope of finding a new world, which would be a logical thing people would do. It could be looked at as a bleak response towards the constant monster attacks on Earth, so some people elected to find a new planet. The personal arcs of Turkina, the Lights of Orion, and Magna Defender would make good sequel movies. The lingering wait for Deviant to betray the villains could be a continuous story weaved into the films. Seeing living Zords being mistreated would be another aspect they could tackle. I would love if the Lights of Orion were actually a part of the Quasar Sabers, but something they had to earn. A secret that was hidden in the Sabers so that it would be the core reason why people would attack Terraventure. The sacrifice of Magna Defender would be a great moment in a film, and the final battle with the city being destroyed on Miranoi's moon would be one of those memorable moments. These are just some ideas that the movie versions of the seasons could do. It doesn't have to be this way. They could deviate on different aspects and come up with new ideas. I don't mind that, as long as the soul of the seasons are respected. Even seasons like Turbo and Samurai would benefit being as a movie. They could do much more in story and the higher age rating. And I don't just mean action, blood, and guts, but the more integral parts of the characters. Frax fighting for his life, ultimately being brainwashed and killed, Trakina being torn with who she should follow, herself or her father, or Deviant's backstabbing plans on everyone. What are your thoughts on the Power Ranger seasons being movies? Would you like them sticking with the season stories, expanding them into movies, or would you like them to be total blank slates where they can do basically anything with the settings? It's a tough thing to decide on. Everyone has different opinions on how they would like to see a Power Rangers film. Some people want the more campy nature, less serious stuff. Some want the movies to be 100% identical in every story point. Some would want them to be totally different in design and character so that they aren't just rewatching the season again. It's a hard decision. New episodes every Monday. Next week, 10 episodes that could have been multi-parter events.